afternoon. We'll call to order the Alexander County Department of Social Services DSS Board meeting this afternoon. I'm Cindy Holman, I'm the director, and this is my 5 minutes of fame that I get to do each year. We will be electing new officers today, but to begin with, let's go ahead and do our invocation, and I will call on Miss Barbara Mays.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering today and for us having such a close relationship with this board and the staff. And we pray that as we go through our jobs today, that we do what is pleasing in your sight. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. And I will go ahead and entertain a nomination for the chairman of the board, or the chairperson for the board, for the upcoming year of July 2012 through June of 2013. Would someone like to make a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Barbara Mays.
I'll second that. I move the nominations be closed.
So we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then we have a, do I need to do the closure first?
No, that would, no, everything's fine.
Okay.
Congratulations, Barbara.
Nominations have been closed, and everyone is in agreement. I guess we need to ask Barbara if she's willing to accept the nomination.
It's too late.
Voted in.
And we're picking a little bit, Barbara, but you've done a good job. And,
Thank you. When Phil came in, I told him how nice he looked, and I just talked to him.
I said, you're campaigning for something. So she got it.
It worked.
Okay, and Barbara, I'll let you handle the nomination for the vice chair.
Okay, do I get a nomination for the vice chair?
I'd nominate Mr. Phil Eichert if he'd be willing to serve another year.
I had to do it. I'll do it one. Yeah, I'll do that. I'd be glad to. If that's the board's.
Do I get a second?
Can you make the second?
She can.
I move in second that we accept Phil as our vice chair for another year. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's Phil, you're my vice
Congratulations.
Oh, yeah, right. You did a good job last year. You only missed one, so I can handle that.
Next, we'll have the approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion to accept today's agenda as written?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been moved and second that we accept the agenda for today. Next, we will have introduction of the new staff.
Hello, I'm Carrie Head. I'm one of the supervisors in Child Protective Services, and I'm going to introduce Debbie Lindley. She is doing in-home services for us in Child Protective Services, and she comes to us with experience in human services as a social worker at the Iredell County Health Department most recently. She got her MBA with a focus in healthcare administration, and decided she really liked the human services field and came back to work. So we're happy to have her. Thank you. Any questions?
Oh, Debbie, we're glad to have you. Thank you.
She not going to make a speech now.
No.
Good afternoon. I'm
Yeah.
Matt Reese, one of the Economic Services Supervisor, and I'd like to introduce Kelly Dishman to the board. Kelly started effective July the 2nd with our agency in adult Medicaid income maintenance, and we are very excited to have her. Kelly comes to us from her previous employment at First Community Bank, and so with her experience in numbers and figures, you know, with the different types of budgets that we have to do, we're very excited to have Kelly, and she's already eager to go. So we're great to have her on board.
Welcome aboard, Kelly. I thought I recognized that face. Welcome aboard, Kelly. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from June the 25th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved that we approve the minutes from the past June the 25th. We will now hear the financial reports, please. And it will be from Sherry Deal.
Good afternoon. Want to bring your attention to the financial report you have in front of you, and this is for the month of June. And I first want to make mention that this is not all-inclusive. The fiscal year has not been completely closed out. They're finishing actually probably by next week. So this is a pretty good representation, but not complete, of all of the expenses and revenues that will come in actually for the fiscal year. If you will look on the category of expenditures along the right-hand side, all of our expenditures were below 100%. There may be one category that you will see an increase. It won't be over budgeted, but for our foster care and adoption line item, we do have a couple of children who came into care probably about 3/4 of the way during our fiscal year, and a couple of those are very expensive placements. They run between $45,000 and $5,000 a month. So that line item will see an increase before the completion of the year. And if you'll also look at the revenues down below on the right-hand side, all of those we have captured for the most part. There will be a couple that will come in. Those will be from Western Piedmont Council of Government. We've yet to receive our last installment for the month of June, so those numbers will change a little bit. And then if you look down at the bottom of the page, what you're most interested in, which is the very last line, this is showing a balance of $59,000 at the close of fiscal year 2012. Again, this is not a complete representation. We have some expenses that are not captured here, as well as some revenues. So next month, when I do a report for July, I'll have a completed picture for the fiscal year as well. And one thing that Cindy wanted me to make mention of while I was up here is we are currently undergoing our county audit. The auditors visited our office back in April and just recently back in June. And the programs that they've focused on, which are usual, is Work First, daycare, Family and Children's Medicaid, Adult Medicaid, the 1571 reimbursement report that's done monthly, and then they did additional compliance for the LEAP program and adoption assistance. And that audit is not completed yet, so hopefully, probably by September, we'll have that completed as well. And I'll take any questions.
We don't have any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now hear highlights of the statistical reports from DSS supervisors.
Good afternoon. If I could draw your attention to page 1 of the statistical report. With this being the close of the end of the fiscal year, just want to draw your attention to a couple numbers. Under the food and nutrition line item, total households in June, the end of this year, we had 2,816. At the first part of the year where we are now, we had 2,735. So there's been a slight increase, throughout the year. The biggest change that I noticed underneath that line item was the number of reapplications. The end of June, we had roughly around 139, whereas previously back in July of last year, we had 95. So in food and nutrition, we've seen throughout the year, a consistent gradual increase, a little bit of months that it's been a little bit of decline, but it's been coming back up. The other thing that wanted to make mention of is Miss Trina Riddle, my other counterpart. She was unable to be here today, but wanted to draw your attention to the family and children's served under the Medicaid line item. In June, we had 5,070. July of last year, we had 4,822. So they've experienced a little bit of an increase there as well throughout the year, as with most of our programs that we see, up and down. Is there any other questions that you have about that? Anything you see? Well, one thing that I did want to mention to you, ladies and gentlemen, that is consistently a topic of interest is our emergency assistance funds that we have. With the new fiscal year starting effective July 1, that's when we get some of our allotments, not all of them, but so far we have gotten our first initial allocation of the Crisis Intervention Program. It's what we commonly refer to as SIP money. And this year, effective July the 2nd, we got $122,918. That's a little bit of a substantial decrease from what our initial, bear in mind, our initial allotment was last year. Our initial allotment that we got was $193,951. But throughout the year of 2011, 2012, we got additional supplements that brought the total to $267,123. So right now, with what we're getting in SIP, it's down from what our initial allotment, was. What we've spent so far has been roughly around $16,000 of that. What we have seen happen is with the abnormal temperatures that we have been experiencing of upwards of the mid-90s, it has put different demographic areas at a higher risk, predominantly our elderly and our families that have younger children. So we have been trying to offer, as much assistance, as we can within reasons of what our policies, will allow for us. We have assisted in buying window unit air conditioners, which we are allowed to do with this funding, which is what we believe has created, a little bit more of a rise of an increase. And then C2, for those of you who may not remember, last year, at the first of the fiscal year, the state had not made changes to that program. We were still bound by a temperature control. And see now, if families are in a certain type of a crisis or life-threatening situation, and if other services is not readily available to them, we have to offer assistance within policy guidelines and criteria. So I just wanted to bring that information to you all's forefront and to see if I could entertain any questions for you.
What was the amount that you said we had received so far?
So far for this year, Ms. Mays, we got $122,918.
Which is $71,000 less than we got in our initial
So,
allocation last year, which that does not mean anything in specific, but I just want to bring it to your attention in that we have already started spending some of those funds. And you remember we were real concerned about our monies last year, making it through the winter. Well, right now we're already spending some of those intervention funds because it's been so hot. It is.
And see, if you'll notice on your statistical report in July, all the way on the far left-hand side, we in the SIP program, we didn't have any applications, didn't spend any money. That was predominantly because our allotment had not came in yet. The state did not get it out to us in the amount of time to administer the funds. And so this year, we got it effective the first business day of this fiscal year. And so we was able to go straight out of the gate, with providing assistance. And the other program, the LEAP, the Low Income Energy Assistance Program, I've not heard any words of any kind of changes with that program, and I will definitely keep you all, ladies and gentlemen, definitely informed of what our initial allotment is for that program as well. Anything else, Cindy, that you can think
I
of?
was just gonna say, Matthew, the total household allotment is $600 for SIP.
Yes, ma'am.
And any warming kinds of needs this year, if someone has come for assistance that will be taken out of that amount. So, we just, we are concerned. We were really concerned last year, and we had a really mild winter. We hope we have a mild winter this year.
Yes. And our intake worker, Becky Taylor, she does a fine job of educating the community of what their allotment is and letting them know how much they've spent, and to also remind them that, this is just July. We've not even reached into January, whenever it can potentially get, it can get cold. So we're trying to educate the community as much as we can about, when they use their allotment and those matters.
Matt, if
Yes,
I
sir.
wrote the numbers down right, from what you said, we had $261,123 total allocation?
267,000.
267,000.
Yes, sir. That was what, Mr. Robertson, that's what our total allocation was by the end of the year.
Okay.
Given the additional allocations that the state, would administer to our county throughout the year.
Notice the total year-to-date expenditure is $268,575. So
There's some.
That's not such a spread there.
Right. And there's some additional things like Ms. Deal had mentioned, that our budget has not been closed out just quite yet. Some variances that we're checking into and looking into. All right. Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you
All right.
very much.
Thank
Matt.
you.
Good afternoon. I'm Carol Church, Child Support Supervisor. If you'll look at the bottom of page 2. For year-to-date in our Medicaid cost avoidance, we saved Medicaid dollars $121,689. We established paternity for 74 children. We established 137 new orders. And we enforced 3,355 court orders. Our total collections was $2,149,331. The state actually set a goal of $2,125,972, so we exceeded our goal set by the state, and we're very proud of that, and we stayed busy, busy, busy. Any questions?
Good job, though.
I'm Julie Sebastian. I'm the Adult Services Supervisor. And if you look at your statistical report on page 3, I wanted to draw your attention to our complaints at our facilities, which is our family care home and adult care home. We had an average of 4, and that's pretty high considering my 2 workers, they have several hats. They have APS, outreach, adult home specialist, payee, guardianship, SAN home, adult daycare, also do intake once a week, and housing and home improvement. And if you'll look on page 4, you'll see the year-to-date 143 reports that we received for adult protective services. And these 2 folks that I'm going to introduce later are the ones that are filling all those hats, and I appreciate everything they've done and their hard work and dedication. Also, our guardianship caseload is increasing. As you'll see, for the month of June, we do now have 5 wards that DSS is responsible for. And CAP, our numbers are still down. We have 79 reported for June, and we have 94 slots allocated. We do only have 2 people on our waiting list. So we're looking about outreaching that, getting on the radio and also the television to see if we can't get those numbers up. And based on our home care community block grant programs, which is our home delivered meals, congregate meals, in-home aid, housing and home improvement that the agency is responsible for spending, we spent all that money except for approximately maybe 2%. So I think that's pretty good too, considering what we had to work with. And also, Cindy wanted me to mention, we had a Cap C monitoring. We've never had a Cap C monitoring before, and I think we put one of those in your packet. And it was a learning tool for all of us. During that time, we were short-staffed, so we did have some documentation errors and also some training, which one of our CAP case managers started back in November, and they only have training every 3 to 4 years. So, of course, we failed in that area, which training hasn't been offered. And as the county, Alexander County, we do need to come up with some policies about a CAP C waiting list, which we do not have a CAP C waiting list, but we need a policy, and also how to go about reporting incident reports to the DMA, which we do, but we just don't have a policy locally. Is there any questions on that?
We did not put a copy. Remember,
Oh.
it was so thick.
I thought we did like the first 5. I'm sorry. I can get y'all a copy of that. Sorry about that.
We did talk about putting the first 2 pages, but we did not give it to
Okay,
them.
I'm
So
sorry.
we will give
I'm
that to
sorry.
you.
Is there anyone having questions or anything they need to add? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Holly Young, the Children's Services Program Manager. If you look on page 5 of your statistical report, you will see that we received 65 reports in the month of June and accepted 40 for investigation. That on the last day of the month of June, we had 34 investigations open and 41 in-home cases open. I really want to draw your attention to the foster care section of the report this month, just to kind of hit some highlights on that section or focus a little more heavily on that section. And we've talked a lot about this, and you heard Sherry talk about the number of kids that we have in high dollar placement and the cost that's associated with those. But I do want to draw your attention to the fact that as of July 2011, we had 32 children in our custody. As of June 30th, we had 45 children in our custody. As of July the 23rd, today, we have 49 children in custody. We had 4 children to come into custody last week. So our caseload has increased significantly with a large number of staff turnover, which you all are aware of. We have 3 dedicated foster care social worker positions, and then 1 social work position that handles links foster home licensing and carries some of our adoption cases, and so she also carries a foster care caseload. The state recommends 1 worker per 15 children in foster care, and so right now we are struggling with that just a little bit, but when we are fully staffed again, which we will be on August the 13th, we'll be having a big old party. Everybody can come. We'll be real happy about that. But having that number of children, 23 children, to come into care in the past year has been pretty significant for us. But not only that, I'm sorry, not 23 children, 20 children, but not only that, but 23 of the 49 children that we currently have in foster care have a plan that is not reunification with a parent. So the plan for those 23 children is either guardianship with a court-approved caretaker, custody with a relative, TPR, termination of parental rights and adoption, and we have 1 child with a plan that is called APLA, which stands for Another Permanent Planned Living Arrangement, and that child is over the age of 16, has been in a placement for more than 6 months, and is not going to be returned to her home. And so the government, or the federal government, allows us to make a plan of what they call APLA for this child, which is for all intents and purposes, long-term foster care until she reaches the age of majority. And it is likely that once she reaches that age, that she will probably continue in our care in a CARS arrangement. And we do have 1 child that's currently over the age of 18 that is in one of those arrangements. And of course, that's for children who are over the age of 18 who remain in our custody, so we can assist in providing them meeting their educational, medical, housing, basic needs kind of situations, and hopefully give them the independent living skills they'll need to move on once they reach the age of 21. But did want to draw your attention to those numbers. If you look at the last line on page 5, or the last column on page 5, it shows that 29 children actually entered our custody in the past fiscal year, and 20 children achieved permanence of some kind, reunification or adoption, guardianship, those type of arrangements. But I did want to draw your attention to those numbers because for us they are pretty staggering. Across the state, foster care numbers are down, and so we're not really sure why we are seeing this trend. But we are really looking at those numbers and the number of children we have in our custody and the number of children that we've had re-enter our custody. And so we are concerned about that and where that is headed, especially with the number of children who don't appear to be likely to be going home to parents anytime soon. So just wanted to draw your attention to that. And then if you would just take a quick look at the key indicator report, or the Child Protective Service Investigative and Family Assessment Report. Of course, that's just a breakdown of the number of reports that we received in the month of June. I'm not going to read that to you line by line, but just draw your attention really to the back side of that page. It should be printed front and back. And to hit the highlights, we received 73% of the reports we received in June involved an injurious environment situation. 53% involved substance abuse issues, and 48% of the reports we received involved improper supervision, those being our highest numbers. And of course, substance abuse continues to be a fairly pervasive issue in the families that we work with. And I will be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Shelley. If that's all of the supervisor reports, we will now have our program, and it's called What's Happening After Hours.
All right. After hours, we do receive calls regarding Adult Protective Services, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Adult Protective Services. We have 4 different categories that we look at. We look at abuse, caretaker neglect, self-neglect, and exploitation. Abuse is examples is unusual and unexplained bruises, welts, fractures, burns in various stages of healing or in shape of an object such as a rope, belt, restraints, electric burner, bed sores, weight loss or dry skin and lips, clothing inappropriate for temperature and conditions, inadequate shelter or medical care, willful confinement in a dangerous environment. And examples of self-neglect, forgetting to turn off the stove or gas, wandering at night, inability to cook, bathe, toilet, dress, or care for oneself, dehydrated, weight loss, causing small fires, living in an unsafe dwelling or environment, inappropriate use of medications, and ability to communicate. Examples of caretaker neglect: failure to provide for adequate food, shelter, and clothing, attention to personal and incidental needs, failure to manage resources to meet needs, failure to provide a safe living situation that is not hazardous to health and safety, failure to provide appropriate supervision, and failure by caretaker to provide or arrange for medical needs. Exploitation, unexplained withdrawal of money from bank accounts, unusual interest by anyone in the disabled adult's assets, difference between assets and lifestyle, unusual large payment for service, mismanagement of personal funds, failure to pay for essential services, and inappropriate sexual activity. Like I said, our workers are on call. We have 2 APS workers. They are on call every other week. starting on Friday, and then they go off the next Friday, and then they're on call the next Friday. So, and I'm on call 365 days a year. And they are on call during the holidays, after hours, weekends, and they even go into facilities if there's complaints going on or if there's something going on about abuse, neglect, or exploitation. We look at private residents, and also we are looking at our wards if something's going on with them, if there's a procedure that's taking place surgically, something going on physically or mentally with that ward. We are looking at that. A couple weeks ago, we had one fell and had a gash in her head. Stitches was required, and that is our responsibility because it is our custody. And we've had concerns of people being homeless, and we've had to work with the sheriff's department of taking them to the shelter. And believe it or not, we've had people to go to the ER and family members refusing to go pick them up. And we've also worked with the sheriff's department in that regard. And just to tell you a little bit about my APS workers, if y'all come up, this is Todd Abernathy. He's worked with the agency 3.5 years, and Brandy Swaim is hitting her year mark next month. And they work together. If one's on vacation, the other one will work and try to fill that time when they're on call. And I think that's pretty much it. And we do have a little skit for you. Hope you enjoy it. It's something we put together.
First, before we do our skit, I want to share a little information with you about the reporters, the individuals that call us. As a reporter, I might be an anonymous family member, a friend, a neighbor, an EMS employee, or a hospital employee, or a sheriff's deputy. Or I might report myself because I'm concerned about my current living condition. My concerns could be that I have seen an elderly person who has unexplained bruises or cannot remember to take their medications, or an elderly person who has told me that a family member has taken their Social Security check and is not making sure that their needs are met. As a reporter, I might not know much about the person's home environment or his or her ability to manage their own affairs. I may not know that their bills are paid or that they have enough food to eat. I may not know if they have family or friends who can check on them to be sure that they are safe. As a reporter, I may know little about their health issues or nothing at all. I might know a little about their family history because I have been an observer over time and have seen the person's health decline. I might have seen the person have difficulty walking and know that they fall quite often. As a reporter, I may know if law enforcement has been involved because I have seen a deputy at their home. I might not know about the condition of their home, or I may just have been there today and seen conditions that need attention. As a reporter, I may know that a person cannot cook for themselves and they are in need of help. I might know that a person has missed several doctor's appointments because they have no transportation. I call because I am concerned and want them to get the help that they need.
At this time, we would like to demonstrate an example of an Adult Protective Services case that we would receive on call from the Alexander County Sheriff's Department. And I'm Brandy Elmore Swain, and will be taking the report as the social worker. Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, this is Brandy Elmore Swain with Alexander County Department of Social Services, and I'm a social worker in Adult Protective Services. I received a call that there's a situation that you would like to report to our agency.
Yes. There's a gentleman that lives next door to me. His name is John Doe. I'm concerned about him because he was out in the driveway this evening and he fell. And I wanted to make sure that he's safe.
Okay. Was EMS called when the gentleman fell out in the driveway?
No, they were not.
Okay. Was he able to get up and go inside, or was there any injuries that were reported?
Well, I actually went over and helped him get up and took him inside. I happened to be looking out the window. It was about 11 o'clock tonight. And he was laying in the driveway, so I went over and I picked him up and helped him inside.
Okay. Can you tell me what his address is?
55 Curvy Lane in Taylorsville.
Okay. Do you know about what his age is?
I'd say 75 to 80 years age.
Okay. Do you know if he's married or single?
He was married, but his wife died about maybe 2 to 3 months ago.
Okay. And his current living arrangement, does he live alone or live with family?
He lives by himself.
Okay. If a worker was going to go out to his home, can you give me directions so that we would maybe be able to locate the home?
Yes, take Highway 6490 west and then turn right onto Curvy Lane.
Okay.
It's the first house on the left.
Does he have a telephone number?
No, he does not.
Okay. Is there anybody else that lives in the house with him?
No, he lives alone.
Okay. In what way do you feel that he is being abused, neglected, or exploited?
Well, I'm concerned about him because he has dementia. And of course, I happened to look out the window tonight and see that he had fallen out in his driveway. So I was a little concerned that he was outside at 11 o'clock at night.
Okay. Do you know of anyone who is mistreating him?
No,
When did this happen?
tonight. It
Okay.
was about 11 o'clock.
Do you know if he has fallen out in the driveway before?
This is the first time I've ever seen him in the driveway.
Okay. And you saw him tonight at 11?
Yes.
And was there any harm to the adult?
Well, he had bruises on his elbows and his knees.
But he didn't have to go to the hospital?
No,
Was there any skin breakdown?
no, none that I saw. Just the bruises.
Okay. Has his mental or physical functioning declined recently that you've been made aware of?
Well, he didn't know where he was tonight, so that was a concern.
Do you feel that he is in immediate danger of death?
No, I don't think so.
How about irreparable harm?
I don't think so.
Was there anybody else that was there that witnessed the incident?
No, he was out there by himself.
Okay. Is he aware that you're giving our agency a call tonight?
No, he does not know.
Okay. Does he have any family that's aware of the report?
Not that I know of.
Is there anyone who may have additional information regarding him and his life, his situation?
Not that I know of. I don't know if he has a family doctor.
Okay. Do you know if they've been involved with DSS before?
I don't know if he has in the past or not.
Has law enforcement been involved with him in the past?
I think law enforcement may have been out there in the past because he did have a history of drinking
Okay.
alcohol.
I'm just going to ask you a few questions about his home environment. It'll just take me just a few minutes if you'll bear with me. Do you know if there's any fire hazards or structural damage in the home?
Well, there's a lot of clutter around the house, inside and out. Outside around the house, there's a lot of tall grass and weeds, and the home is fairly dilapidated. It's like it
Okay.
needs some repairs.
Is there any vermin or pests in the home?
Not that I saw. The only thing I did see were some flies around the kitchen because there was a pot on the stove that had food that looked like it had been there 2 or 3 days.
Okay. Do you know if he had adequate heating and cooling in the home?
Well, there was an air conditioning unit that was in the window, but it was not working, and it was hot in the house.
Okay. Is there any falling or tripping hazards?
There's a lot of clutter in the home. There are a lot of clothes on the floor, boxes all around. So there's a lot of items in there.
Okay. Do you know if he has access to a telephone?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And is he able to access transportation if he needed to go somewhere?
Well, he doesn't have a car.
Okay. Do you know if he has a neighbor or family member that takes him anywhere?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you know if his bills are being paid?
I don't know if his bills are paid or not. I think he manages his own money.
Okay. Does he have limited social contacts?
I see very few people over at his house. I think he's pretty much a loner, likes to be
Okay.
alone.
I'm going to ask you just a few questions about his mental status. Do Do you know if he has any short-term memory loss?
Well, he didn't know where he was tonight, so that was a
Okay.
concern. Like I say, I think he has dementia.
Okay. Does he have any inappropriate behaviors we would need to be aware of? Agitation?
I think he gets agitated at times. I've heard him over at his house, but I didn't know who he was talking to.
Okay. So, does he have any hallucinations?
Not that I know of.
Did he seem fearful or anxious?
Anxious
Okay.
at times, I think.
Do you know if he has any substance abuse besides alcohol?
No, the only thing I know is he used to drink alcohol.
Okay. Has he had any recent suicide attempts?
Not that I know of.
Okay. And does he have any vision or hearing problems?
He wears glasses.
Okay. Is he able to bathe and dress himself and perform his basic hygiene?
Well, he was dirty tonight. He looked like he hadn't had a bath in quite a while, and his hair was all messed up, and he just looked like he hadn't been clean in 3 or 4 days, maybe.
Okay.
There was a lot of odor in the house, too.
Okay. Do you feel that he is able to prepare his meals?
I don't know if he can or not, because he's a very thin gentleman, and when I looked around the home, I didn't see a lot of food.
Okay.
A couple of cans on the counter, but that was about it.
Did it look to see that he was able to do his housekeeping?
The house was very dirty and cluttered. A lot of items laying around, and there was a lot of odor in the home.
Okay. Is there anyone that you're aware of who helps him on a regular basis?
Not to my knowledge.
Do you know if he has anyone who helps with decision-making?
I don't know. I mean, he lives there by himself, and I don't know many people that come to see him.
Okay.
So,
Has anyone attempted to stop what is happening to the adult?
not that I know of. This is the first call I know that's been made.
Okay. And are there any safety or environmental issues that we should be aware of going out to the home?
Well, now, he used to have a gun in the home, and I don't know if he still does or not.
Okay. Do you know, has he ever used the gun?
I have heard it go off in the past, but that's been a while.
Okay.
It sounded like maybe a shotgun.
Okay. I'm just taking some notes down. I think that I have completed all the questions that I have on my report. Can you think of anything else that you could add to give me more of an idea of Mr. Doe?
Well,
And-
just that, again, he was very dirty. He didn't look like he'd taken a bath in some time. He just didn't act like he knew where he was. And so that's why I'm calling, because I'm concerned. But I don't want him to know that I called.
Okay. Well, let me just explain just a few things to you. For a report to be considered adult protective services, certain criteria has to be met. The person would have to be considered disabled, and there would have to be an allegation of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. Okay. Of course, the reports are kept confidential unless it's ordered by a judge to be released during a court hearing. So an option that you do have is for the report to be confidential.
So no one's going to say anything that I called
Right.
if I were to give you my name.
The only thing is that if you want the report to be anonymous, you would not be notified of the outcome of the report in the future.
Well, I would like to remain anonymous, please.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for giving us a call. I appreciate it. Do you have any other questions?
Well, will someone go out there and check on him tonight, or when will someone go?
Okay. Well, what I am supposed to do is call my supervisor, who is Julie Sebastian, and she will be able to tell me if this report is considered to be, if it meets the criteria for adult protective services.
Okay.
Okay?
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ring, ring.
Hello?
Hi, Julie.
Hey, this is she.
This is Brandy Swain, one of your adult
Hey.
protective services workers.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good.
Sorry
What's going on?
Sorry to give you a call, but I have received a report from the Sheriff's Department. It's on a John Doe, 55 Kirby Lane. He's 75 years old. What the problem is he was actually helped inside at 11 p.m. tonight by a neighbor. One of the concerns that I do have about him is he does have dementia, and he was found in his driveway. EMS was not called. He did have bruises to his elbows. I didn't have a lot of information, but he does have some drinking in the past. There was a lot of clutter outside the home. The inside of the home seemed to be dirty. He did not seem to be well kept. And there wasn't a lot of food in the kitchen.
Okay, so EMS wasn't called. Is there anything safety going on that?
He was dirty, did not seem to have bathed in quite a while, and there was an odor in the home.
Okay, anything that the worker needs to be concerned about?
There was a mention of a gun in the home, and it has gone off in the past.
All right. Wonder how long he's been laying there. Poor little man.
Yeah.
Yeah, Brandy, if you don't mind, get in touch with law enforcement and seeing if you can't just go on out there tonight and check on him. He may need more medical attention than what we think.
All
And then
right.
call me back and let me know.
All right, thank you very much, and I'll give you a call when I get out there.
And I'll talk to you later.
All right, thank
Thanks,
you.
Bye.
Bye. And that is how it usually works. Several phone calls. A lot of information to take in, so
How often does this happen?
it depends.
I've had a situation in my life where I was on call, and I always remember how confining it was.
Yeah, sometimes we'll get one call a week, sometimes two, sometimes it's quiet.
Okay.
And our
So
average
you
is
just-
about 7 a month for adult services. It's not as high as CPS, but, you know, we do have calls where neighbors are afraid what's going on, and things may be going on for months, and they all of a sudden call at night. You know, we do
Right.
run into that as well, but
So
Is
it's about
he-
7 calls per,
average of 7 calls a month, yeah. And like I said, that number's probably going to increase because our guardianship caseload has increased. So, does anybody have any questions or anything they want to add?
Making people aware is always very important. I heard on the radio this morning that an individual in Hidnight, an older person, I don't even know what they said, was basically hoodwinked out of about $3,000 on a possibility of win $2.5 million and sent $400 or $500 several times. And we think, well, nobody's going to believe that, but as we get older, we don't process things sometimes, and while we might be fully capable of taking care of ourselves, we still need somebody once in a while to give us a hand.
Where are the numbers listed if you saw something like this at night?
You contact the Alexander County Sheriff's Department, and they would get in touch with either Todd or Brandy.
Okay.
And that number's 632-4659. Anybody else have anything?
I just want to highlight that they do work all day, and both of them, they alternate a week at a time, so 52 weeks a year, they're on call every other week in addition to their full-time responsibilities. And then, of course, Julie is on call all the time. So it's a large responsibility, 24/7, 365 days a year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm sorry, it's just me. So you'll just.
Okay.
I don't have a skit, and but I can say that a lot of our calls, our intake process is very similar to that of Adult Protective Services, although some of the questions we ask are just a little bit different because we are dealing with children, and children don't have the right to make the decisions that some of the adults that the Adult Protective Services folks deal with can make. And Julie and I have had the conversation many times that we would never switch jobs. I couldn't do what they do, and they couldn't do what they don't want to do what we do. It's interesting how people, excuse me, find their calling and are happy where they are. Liz Metz is our primary on-call social worker. We do have one full-time on-call social work position in Child Protective Services. She works on Tuesday nights, and then she is on call on Thursday evening, so every evening after 5, then through the weekend until Monday morning at 8 o'clock. She does get one weekend off a month, and our staff provide primary and backup to her on the days that she doesn't work and her weekends that she's off. And so our full-time staff who carry caseloads also cover on-call responsibilities. When we're fully staffed, it works out to about once every 3 months that they're a primary or a backup, and it works out to about once a year that they have to cover a weekend for for the year. So that responsibility is not too terribly bad. We rotate our supervisory duties between the 3 supervisors and myself. But I am also on call 365 days a year to be able to talk with the supervisors should they have a question, something that's going on in a case. Our cases typically involve multiple phone calls. The phone calls usually come to us from the sheriff's office. It may be law enforcement calling us, but it also may be just a citizen who's contacted the sheriff's office about a concern that they have for a child. And I just wanted to give you some numbers and some of the responsibilities that we have after hours. In the month of January, excuse me, we took 10 reports after the hours of 5 o'clock or on the weekends, and 5 of those required us to respond immediately to those reports. In February, we took 8 reports. 3 of those required an immediate response time. And immediate for us is as soon as you put the phone down, get your clothes on, and run out the door. That is immediate. Get there right then. In the month of April, we took 11 reports, and 5 of those required us to respond immediately. In May, we had 10 reports that came in after hours, and we had to respond to 4 of those immediately. And in June, we had 11, and 5 of those required an immediate response time frame. Those are all either after 5 o'clock or on the weekends or on a holiday, because because it's a holiday doesn't mean we don't work. I had the pleasure of spending this past Christmas Eve at the agency with my on-call social worker with some children who needed a safe place to stay. I have also, along with my staff, rotated a weekend at a hospital with a child that just happened to be Mother's Day weekend. So we do work those hours, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was getting some numbers together and getting ready for this, and I was almost kind of blown out of my own chair when I counted up that on-call contacts, the contacts that our on-call worker or workers make after hours from January 1st of this year until June 30th. They've made over 209 contacts after the hours of 5 o'clock or on the weekends. And those are just what's been documented. I don't go through and read to see how many people they actually interviewed and what they had to document, but that they had 209 referrals during that period of time. So that averages out to almost 35 contacts a month that somebody has to make, which is 3.5 caseloads. The on-call position that Liz carries is made up of a blended position of an investigator assessor, an in-home worker, and a foster care social worker. And that's very fitting because any person that ever does on-call has to have some knowledge of every one of those roles. You have to be an expert at intake. You have to know how to initiate an investigation. You have to know the contact requirements for in-home family services cases. And you also have to know how to write a petition, file a petition, bring a kid into custody, and find placement for them. So your knowledge base must be very wide to be able to carry that responsibility. And you must make decisions very quickly, but also very thoroughly, and know that your decisions are going to keep a child safe no matter what you do. One call from the sheriff's office could mean 4 home visits. When we initiate a report, we are required to see every person that resides in the home of the child or children that the report was made about. And so, if there are 4 children in the home and 2 of the children are visiting with 2 different daddies on the weekend that the report came in, it's our responsibility to make sure that those children get seen at the same time all the other children get seen. It doesn't matter what time or when, we still have to do that. The on-call worker also takes referrals from our regular line staff to make sure that they are meeting their contact requirements and also meeting their initiation timeframes, seeing all those folks that live in the home. And so they're responsible for that. We, of course, work very closely with law enforcement after hours when they have concerns about families, domestic violence, substance abuse, impaired drivers. Those are some of the most frequent calls that we get that we work with law enforcement on. But law enforcement is definitely our friend after 5 o'clock, and especially after the sun sets, because even if they haven't contacted us or are not involved, we typically contact them and ask us to go out or ask them to go out with us to these homes for our workers' safety. They don't wear bulletproof vests. They don't have guns. They don't carry pepper spray. Their best weapon is probably dog biscuits, because that's the number one injury in our unit is dog bites. And so dog biscuits are your friend when you're initiating reports after hours on call and even during the day. But they have to have the ability to handle multiple tasks at one time and prioritize the needs and risk of the cases that they're working with. Excellent communication skills, verbal and written. Everything that is done after hours or on call has to be documented, because that 9 times out of 10, or probably more frequently than that, that information has to be given to another worker to follow up on. And so that documentation has to be almost immediate after those contacts are made, so the worker that is assigned that case can follow up on any concerns that the on-call worker might have had. 75% of our on-call social workers' time is spent working with families who are involved in investigations or assessments. So that is the primary role that they have, either doing intake or going out to initiate and see those families where there is an immediate response time frame or need. Just an example of how we sometimes, even before 5 o'clock, get into on-call situations. In this past fiscal year, our agency received a call at around 2:30 in the afternoon asking us to provide social work staff, a minimum of 2 staff and 1 supervisor, for an event that was occurring where there was believed to be children at risk. We were told what location to be at and were given no other information because of the confidentiality of the report and the fact that it was an operation that was not a DSS operation. And so 2 of my staff and myself went to the place that we were told to be. We were briefed on the situation, and we arrived at the place where we were supposed to be between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. We're briefed on it, and probably got home sometime between midnight and 1 o'clock that morning after watching a SWAT team enter a home, helicopters fly overhead, everybody in bulletproof vests except for EMS and DSS staff. And so I will say this is a job where you'll never get bored. I feel like I'm recruiting for the Army. I mean, if you want to see the world, if you want to see Alexander County, this is a place that you can do it and sometimes see things that you may never have dreamed or thought you would ever see. We often say that working in Child Protective Services, you couldn't make this up. No one could write a script of sometimes the things that we see. But just wanted to give you kind of a real example of some of at least one situation that we've dealt with that is pretty scary for our staff. And you can imagine when there's children in those situations, how scary it would be to be a child in the home where your door is, knocked in and dogs are barking and loud noises and helicopters flying and trying to console those children. And it's dark and it's cold. But I have to say that I have a staff of very talented people who wholeheartedly believe that children deserve to be safe and in a permanent home, and they will always do the right thing when it comes to working with those families, whether it be 8:30 in the morning or midnight. And I do appreciate all that they do. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
I don't have any. That was very thorough,
Well, thank you.
very thorough.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. And now we will hear items from the DSS Director, Cindy Holman.
Thank you, and I'll try to be brief. We are so excited. I'm afraid all the supervisors will break out in clapping and yelling. We have offered all of our positions now. We're very excited about that. Do want for you to be aware of the realities of what we've been through. We've had 2 folks come on board real recently, and we have 3 more coming the middle of August. It will take those 3 that are coming, all 3 of them have to go to pre-service training, Holly, so they will be in the office for a week, then they'll be gone to pre-service training for 2 weeks, back in our office for a week, and then out another week. So we're looking at the end of September. That's 3 full social work positions. So when you hear what they're doing, we have 2 like that this month, 3 more coming on. So we've literally had a third of our staff. We've been down a third of our staff for an extended period of time. So I know you'll want to keep these folks in your thoughts. The number of reports coming in has not gone down. Obviously, the number of children coming into foster care have not gone down. It has increased. So it's been a difficult time, but we do have all our positions offered. We're very excited about that and hope to get back on track in the fall of this year and feel better. We hope for these managers. I can't say enough about Holly and Carrie and Heather, and we have a new supervisor coming on board. We can't get her into her supervisory role because we give her a report every other day. So we're still working her to death. But they've done a great job, and we're really excited. I wanted to give you just a brief update. Daryl had, we had given you some information, and I think he, as a Smoky Mountain board member, had taken that back to his board and spoken in. I did want you to know that we have had a debriefing on the particular case that was about. Also, we have a forthcoming telephone conference with Christina Carter, and have felt like they have very appropriately responded to the concern about the urgency there.
I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the report that Holly and staff put together, because I told the CEO I wasn't going to try to explain it because I couldn't even say the words, but Holly did a real good job of putting it together, and they said they would get it to people who needed to do something.
We feel like they hear us and that they are responding to our urgency. We feel good about that. We still very much feel like we have a system that's broken. We have a number of children right now that are very, very difficult to place, high level of behaviors. Don't have foster parents that will take them, and for good reason, can't be managed in a regular home. And placement is a problem. Smoky Mountain can't help that facilities have been closed and that there are not. We have 2 folks right now that need to be in what's a level 5. We call it PRTF, and you'll have to say what that means. There you go. That need to be in those facilities, and it has taken 3 or 4 people almost full-time every day. We could dedicate ourselves to that every day and still might not be able to get that mission accomplished. It is not accomplished at this moment. So want you to hear us that they are responding to us, which is we appreciate very much. But there is a broken element between an agency that gets custody of children who have behaviors that cannot be managed in a regular foster home, and we can't get them placed. If a foster home can't manage them, a social worker at night can't manage them either. So we are very concerned about that problem. Number 3 on here was the board position. I think we'll have to speak to Hazel. Hazel has somewhat hesitantly agreed that she would, I think, be willing to serve until we are able to get someone. We've promised her that there will be diligent efforts to get someone, but she has, I think, agreed that she would do that. And we probably would need for you to temporarily vote her back in. Is that okay, Hazel?
Sure.
Until we are able, and then I will need suggestions from you. I don't know that we want to say them out loud in here, but we do have a suggestion that I will forward to you on email, and you can let me know as a group whether you'd like for me to approach that person. And then we had a couple of other names that were mentioned the last time we met. And if you have other suggestions, we'd be glad to circulate that through all of you and get a consensus. So I guess maybe, Barbara, you might need to entertain a motion to,
I would like to get a motion to accept Hazel Yoder as a temporary board member, and if she has agreed to accept that, so could I get a motion to that?
I make a motion that we ask Ms. Yoder to continue her position until a person can be found to replace her.
Do I get a second?
Second.
It's been moved in second that Hazel stay with us until that time, and we're glad that you're doing that for us. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And there are no opposers, so I'm sure. So, with that, I'll turn it back to Sandy.
and we will, Hazel, what we'll do is communicate with you and make arrangements to just get you sworn until we can get someone else on board. And again, I will be in contact with all of you through email. I did want to bring back to you this Ethical Transfer Alliance pledge and see if you've had an opportunity to look at it. I apologize for springing that on you at the last minute, but you did get a copy and get to take it home, and wanted to see if you had any questions or concerns about us becoming a part of that. I don't know, do any of you have questions about it?
Who is actually administering this, Cindy? Is this,
There is a group in the western part of the state. It's a western group of directors. They call themselves, I believe, the Partnership and Performance Group for the West. It is simply a group of DSS directors and our private partners that manage the placement facilities. And it is an effort by that group to do better about transferring licenses between either agencies, one DSS to another, or of course we have foster parents. What we felt like was a problem for a long time is that we would recruit and train foster parents, and then of course therapeutic agencies pay the foster parents more money. That does not mean we're not in any way alleging that they're doing it for more money, but if you think you're willing to take a harder child and able to handle that child, you might want to go to a therapeutic agency and become a therapeutic foster parent, and it certainly does pay a whole lot more than our board rate. So what we've agreed, this just is an ethical transfer policy. It's a pledge that we're making to each other and to our private providers, and some private providers have agreed to join this alliance, but we're just saying we're going to work together. We're all here for the same children. It's North Carolina's children. We're going to take seriously our obligation to train and provide good care for them, and for our foster parents to have the training that they need, and for us not to vulturize, for lack of a better word, each other. Steal each other's foster parents, try to recruit them across county lines into other agencies. And there's certainly nothing legal about this. Would we be able to stop another county that had signed this alliance? No, but it would be something where we will have signed something, you as a board would have said, Alexander County, this is the way we're gonna behave ourselves. We're gonna train foster parents, we're not gonna take foster parents from other agencies without having had a really good conversation with that family about why they would be wanting to transfer their license. And then there's the other side of that is that if we had a really bad experience with a foster parent, that foster parent might just run next door and say, Iredell County, I'd rather switch my license to you. There's that part of it too, is that we as DSS agencies need to be communicating with each other. And if we have a problem with a set of foster parents in this county, Iredell's going to want to know it, or Wilkes is going to want to know it, and not pick up those same problems. We don't want to transfer problems across lines.
Now, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Are we allowed to do that? I mean, if an agency from, say, Iredell calls us and we have a family that is, foster family that's just not going by our rules, just making their own rules, are we allowed to tell them that? Or do we have to just say, no, we would not bring them back into our agency? Or
Well, because we're both charged for the care of children, I think that we would share that information.
Okay.
It's kind of on a needs-to-know basis, just like a Child Protective Services report is. I mean, we would share with another agency if we had issues about the care of children. We certainly do investigations on foster families. At times there are reports, if you can imagine that, of abuse, neglect, or dependency actually on the foster homes. And certainly another agency would be able to check the central registry and that kind of thing, so.
So basically, there's no responsibility and no liability. It's a mutual agreement.
It's a pledge.
What about the documents themselves now? Do they fall under HIPAA or any other guidelines that they have to be protected?
There is actually an attorney there. They have run this form through, I think, the AG's office. There are a number of directors on participating in this, and it has been looked at. I think, Rob, have I had you look at this? So I'd be glad to run it through Rob if you'd like for me to have him take a look at it. It is a pledge again. It's not a legal document. But I'll be glad to have him take a look at it if you'd feel more comfortable about it.
I would. I mean, from what I've read and what I understand about it, I don't have a big problem as long as we are sure that,
We're not doing something illegal.
well, the responsibility and liability I've written down and underlined, and want to make sure that's in order. And then, how confidential are these, and has that been taken care of?
This?
Yeah.
This will actually only be given to the actual work group itself, where it will produce a list of names of agencies that are a part of the alliance. So it would not, like the document would not go to anyone else. We would keep it on hand. These are forms we already do. The license, all of these things are required. So, am I answering your question?
Yeah,
You're still smiling?
No, the required part impresses me because some of it gets to be kind of extreme, but I guess that's the world we live in.
It's a pretty extensive list if you look on that back page.
yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that, to approve this, subject to Rob's review of it, and then have it on a consent agenda next time to give it.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it, but I would like for him to take a look at it before we do the final.
If it's okay, I'd like to second that motion since, I did ask the questions too. I mean, we don't want to be liable, so I do second that also. All those in favor, all those in favor of the motion that Darrell just made, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Now, is there anyone opposed to what we're asking? Okay, no opposers, so we'll let, Cindy, let Rob look at that then.
Okay. I did want to tell you, I think I may have made a joke about this last time we were together, but, you know, my grandmother used to say, you'd be born and you'd be taxed to death. Well, we've been born and audited to death. At our office, I believe we had, 1 week we had a CAP audit, a Medicaid transportation, and the single county audit all going on at the same time. We had people all over the building reviewing our cases and our records and our files. Just since we've been together, did we have FNS since, was that before the last? Okay. That's right, that is right. We did have a Medicaid transportation review, and the counties have been pretty upset about that because of a lot of changes that came about in the program this year. And as you know, we've had quite a few things that we have to do now that we did not have to do before. So a Medicaid log and some pretty extensive changes in the program. And the interesting thing to us was they came and they audited the month before we went to that new system. So they came and audited the old system right before, even though we've now gone into the new system.
That's a shocker.
I did give you a copy of the report. I believe you have this report on the review. Trina Riddle, who's not here today, had written a response to this, and I do believe that it has been accepted by DMA. We obviously need to get our new contract in place with Greenway. One of the things the biggest thing that they talked about, they told us there were a couple of forms that we had to get taken care of just here and there in a different record. But they also talked about wanting us to revamp our central log for late and missed trips and complaints from clients, some things like that. But the biggest thing they had was they were concerned about our rate per trip. They did not understand, and we're under right now with Greenway, or prior to July the 1st, we had been under a shared trip rate. So if our person got on the van and there were 5 other people on the van, we shared that rate. They felt like from our record keeping and their record keeping that they could not determine what we paid, how much our payment was, really came from. So they did recommend a fixed or flat rate. And so we are in negotiations right now with Greenway. We do not have a contract in place yet. We are continuing to refer folks to them, but we will have a contract in place. None of the counties, it's my understanding at the last information we had actually signed their contracts yet. Catawba was reviewed the day after we were, and they had some of the exact same findings. So I wanted to make you aware of that. You will probably hear more about Medicaid transportation as we go.
They need to go audit the federal government because that's why we're doing it this way. This was not a local decision. It came down with grant monies that used to come to the counties of uniform, and that was how the edict come down. So they're asking people at the bottom to try to explain what the people at the top are trying to accomplish. Because it didn't make any sense here when they did it. But
that new grandbaby's gonna be so thrilled at this clarity.
he's picking up on it.
So, I absolutely agree with you, Darryl. And that is all I had today. I think we do need to have a closed session today.
And one comment on that transportation. A lot of people hear, well, why did they change that? We didn't change that. That did come down with federal funds recommending regionalization rather than each county doing their own. It would be more cost effective and all this, and so far I haven't seen that, and I would like for them to have an audit to prove what they're doing.
Well, there is a lot of talk about them going to a brokerage system that will cover the whole entire state, and everybody will come under that brokerage system. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen with Medicaid transportation. I will tell you that we put into place a voucher system as a backup system, and if you build it, they will come. We have the traffic on that has picked up a whole lot with, for instance, someone who can't get to their medical appointment, they have their neighbor take them. We are only giving the voucher to the actual recipient themselves. But we're seeing quite a bit of that people are electing out of doing the public transportation, and we're not sure how that'll all work out. But it has increased dramatically since we began that system as a secondary system, because we do have people that cannot get on a Greenway route. There just simply is not anything available to them, so we had to have something to back up that system. And that's all I have.
Are there any items, other items from the board members at this time? Okay, we will now enter into closed session under statute, General Statute 143-318-11. Do I have a motion to enter into closed session?
Make the motion.
That's it. We will now go into closed session.